Have you ever felt that deep urge to defend yourself, to prove a point, to fight back? Maybe it was after someone disrespected you, or when someone misunderstood you so badly it burned. Now let me ask you this. What if I told you that the strongest decision you'll ever make in your life isn't to speak louder, fight harder, or explain yourself better, but to do absolutely nothing? That's right. Not because you're weak, but because you've mastered something the world doesn't understand: the power of non-reaction. You see, silence is not the absence of power, it's the control of it. And in a world addicted to noise, chaos, and emotional outbursts, the one who can remain still, genuinely still, is the one who holds all the power. We've been trained to believe that reaction is strength. If someone hits you, hit back. If they ghost you, go chase them. If they question you, explain harder. But here's the truth no one teaches us growing up. Every time you react, you hand over your energy. Let that sink in. They push your buttons, you jump. They withdraw, you spiral. They insult you. You feel the need to justify. But in that very moment, you're no longer in control. They are. Because now, they're pulling the strings, and you've become the puppet. Now imagine this instead. Someone throws chaos your way, and you don't move. You don't fight, you don't flinch, you don't feed the fire. You just observe. Do you know how powerful that is? That kind of silence, it unsettles people, because the world doesn't know what to do with someone who won't play the emotional chess game. They can't manipulate a man or a woman who doesn't react. And that's the secret most people will never learn. Your silence. It's not emptiness, it's strategy. It's spiritual discipline, it's psychological warfare without a single word. So today, I want to invite you into that stillness, not to run from conflict, but to rise above it. Because the most powerful version of you is not the one shouting to be heard. It's the one who can sit in silence and still be unshakable. Let me ask you something simple but powerful. When was the last time you didn't react? I mean, truly, when someone disrespected you, ignored you, tested your patience. Did you pause? Or did you jump straight into defense mode like most of us were taught? We live in a world that tells us speak up, defend yourself, fight back. And while standing up for yourself matters, there's something even more powerful than reaction. It's restraint, it's calmness, it's the stillness that looks like nothing on the outside, but is everything on the inside. You see, every time you react emotionally to chaos, to conflict, to criticism, you're giving away your power. You're letting someone else dictate the rhythm of your mind. They push a button, and you respond just like that. And here's the truth most people never realize: reaction isn't strength. It's surrender. It means the outside world now has control over your inner world. And that is a dangerous trade. Now think about someone who stays calm under pressure, who doesn't raise their voice when provoked, who doesn't explain themselves when misunderstood. A person like that, they seem unshakable, don't they? Almost intimidating in their silence. That's not weakness, that's mastery. Carl Jung, one of the great minds of modern psychology, said it perfectly. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. What does that mean? It means most of us are reacting not to the moment in front of us, but to something buried deep inside. A childhood wound, a fear of abandonment, a need to be validated. And until we see those patterns clearly, they keep running the show. That's where the concept of the shadow self comes in. It's the part of us we try to suppress: the pain, the shame, the unprocessed trauma. But here's the twist. That hidden part, it doesn't disappear. It lives in our reactions. It's why a small comment from someone can ruin your whole day. It's why silence from someone you love can trigger a storm inside you. Because it's not about them. It's about what's still unhealed within you. So what's the solution? Stillness. not silence as in passivity, not avoidance or numbing, but calm, conscious presence. Because the person who can sit in discomfort without needing to explode, defend, or run away, that person is free. Not because nothing affects them, but because they've learned to observe, not absorb. Imagine you're in the middle of an argument. Someone says something cruel, maybe even unfair, and instead of biting back, you pause. You take a breath. You say nothing, not because you have nothing to say, but because you've decided not to give away your peace. That pause, that calmness, it's not weakness, it's strategic dominance. It's you saying, I choose to keep my energy. Because once you understand this, once you feel it in your bones, you realize calmness is a superpower. It's the kind of strength that doesn't have to shout. It doesn't demand attention. It doesn't chase after understanding. It simply is. And here's something to reflect on. Who are you when you're calm? Not when things are going well, but when they're falling apart. Can you remain centered? Can you stay grounded in your truth, even when your ego wants to fight? Because that's the test and that's the invitation, to stop being a puppet of every trigger, to stop being emotionally hijacked by every comment, every misunderstanding, every wave of fear. Instead, become the ocean beneath the wave. When you master calmness, you become like a still lake. You reflect clearly. You no longer distort the world with inner turbulence. And you become deeply, undeniably powerful. Have you ever noticed how quickly your mind jumps in to interpret everything someone doesn't text you back? You assume they're avoiding you. You fail at something once your mind whispers, see, you're not good enough. Someone else gets praised and your stomach tightens like you're falling behind. It happens so fast we don't even question it. But here's the truth, your mind is not always telling you the truth. In fact, it's often telling you stories, just to feel like it's in control. Let's pause and get honest. The human mind is brilliant, yes, but left unchecked, it's also obsessive. It wants to label everything, judge everything, fix everything. And the second it feels uncertainty, it panics. That panic, it shows up as reaction. Now here's the trap. Most people think their reactions are who they are. They say, I'm just emotional, or I'm wired this way. But that's not entirely true. Carl Jung once said something that changed the way I see everything. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. That means the anger that flares up when someone disrespects you, the jealousy that creeps in when someone else shines, the anxiety that swells when plans fall apart. That's not your true self. That's your unconscious mind reacting. It's your ego trying to protect you. Let's go deeper. The ego, our mental survival system, isn't evil. It's just afraid. Afraid of rejection, afraid of failure, afraid of not being enough. So what does it do? It creates noise, it reacts, it judges, it compares anything to feel like it has power again. But here's the paradox. The more the ego reacts, the more you lose touch with who you really are. You are not your jealousy. You are not your anxiety. You are not your overthinking. You are the awareness behind them all. Let that land for a second. You are the calm observer watching the storm, not the storm itself. And when you begin to realize this, something powerful happens. You don't need to silence your mind. You don't need to fight your thoughts. You just need to watch them. Watch them without reacting. Watch them without judging. Watch them like clouds passing through the sky, because that's all they are. Temporary. And the moment you stop identifying with every thought, every emotion, every mental movie, you take your power back. That's the beginning of healing. That's the beginning of awakening. Let me give you an example. Imagine someone criticizes you publicly, harshly. Your mind immediately wants to jump in, defend yourself, say something, prove them wrong. But if you pause, if you just observe that urge without obeying it, you'll notice something magical. The urge fades. The energy behind it dissolves, because the ego feeds on reaction. And when you stop feeding it, it shrinks. This is why non-reaction is such a powerful practice. Not because you're avoiding life, but because you're learning to stop letting your mind control your life. So here's the invitation today. Next time your emotions rise, don't fight them. Don't suppress them. And definitely don't act on them right away. Instead, pause, breathe. Ask yourself gently, is this really me? Or just my ego feeling threatened? That tiny question can change your entire path. Because the more you choose to observe instead of react, the more you begin to live from your center, not from your conditioning, not from your fear, not from your pain. This is what Carl Jung called individuation, the process of becoming whole by seeing what's really you and what's not. So let your thoughts come and go. Let your emotions rise and fall. Let your mind speak, but don't give it the final word. You are not here to live in reaction. You are here to live in awareness. And that, my friend, is your greatest superpower. Let me ask you something you may not hear very often. What if your pain doesn't need to be fixed? What if it just needs to be felt? We live in a world that teaches us to dissect everything. We analyze every heartbreak, every rejection, every failure, like scientists examining a wound under a microscope. We replay conversations in our heads 1,000 times, hoping that maybe, just maybe, we'll finally understand it enough to make it stop hurting. But let me offer a radical thought. Healing doesn't come from understanding. It comes from acceptance. It comes from presence, from sitting in the quiet beneath the noise where pain no longer needs a story, just space to breathe. Now I get it, analyzing makes us feel safe. It gives us the illusion of control. If I just figure out why they did that, if I can make sense of why this happened, if I can trace the cause, I can erase the effect. But here's the truth, most people don't want to hear. The mind can't heal what only the heart can feel. And most of what we call healing is actually resistance in disguise. We're not trying to accept what happened. We're trying to rewrite it so it hurts less. But emotions don't respond to logic. They respond to presence. Carl Jung, the great Swiss psychologist, once said, "We do not heal by remembering the past. We heal by being present with the pain in the now." Let that land. You don't have to solve your sadness. You don't have to explain your anxiety. You don't need a 5-step formula for grief. Sometimes you just need to sit with it. Imagine this. You're alone. The world is quiet. There's no music, no phone, no one asking you to smile, just you and the ache inside your chest. And instead of running from it, you stay. You let your shoulders drop. You feel the tightness in your breath. You let the tears rise. You let your pain be seen by you. That right there, that is where healing begins. Because silence isn't emptiness. It's not the absence of action. It's the presence of truth. It's what happens when the nervous system finally exhales, when the body softens, when the soul whispers, "Thank you for listening." See, your body knows how to heal, but it needs safety. It needs space. And space is exactly what silence offers. In silence, your heart rate slows, your breath deepens, your mind, once a war zone of spiraling thoughts, begins to settle like snow in a calm forest. That's not weakness, that's alignment. And here's the thing nobody tells you. You don't heal by doing more. You heal by allowing more. You heal when you stop trying to fix your feelings like broken furniture and instead, you hold them like sacred guests. You stop asking, "Why am I still like this?" and start whispering, "It's okay that I'm still like this." You stop trying to perform strength and instead, you embody real strength, which often looks like crying in silence or breathing through a memory without collapsing. This is the medicine we've forgotten in a world addicted to noise. We think healing has to be dramatic, loud, or explained. But most true healing happens in stillness, in a moment of deep breath, in the exact second you stop fighting with your past and start being with your present. And it's hard at first. Silence can feel terrifying. It can feel empty, even suffocating, because in that silence you'll face everything you've been running from: the grief, the confusion, the fear. But if you stay long enough, if you breathe long enough, you'll realize silence isn't punishing you, it's freeing you. Because when you stop explaining, stop analyzing, stop resisting, something sacred happens. You begin to remember you were never broken. You were just crowded with noise, with expectations, with wounds that never had a voice. So give them a voice. Not in words, but in space. Sit, breathe, feel, and let the silence do what no explanation ever could. Let it hold you. Let it heal you. Because in the end, silence isn't absence. Silence is presence. Silence is wholeness without words. Let me ask you something personal. When was the last time someone said something that made your blood boil? Maybe it was a passive-aggressive comment from a coworker, a betrayal from someone you trusted, or a social media post clearly meant to provoke you. And what did your instinct tell you to do? Clap back, defend your name, expose the truth. Yeah, that's what most of us are conditioned to do. We're taught that silence equals weakness, that if you don't respond, you've somehow lost. But what if I told you that no response is actually the strongest response you can give? That when you choose not to react, you're not surrendering, you're rising above. You're stepping outside of their world and reclaiming your own. You see, every time you react, you enter their reality. You adopt their chaos. You let their narrative hijack your energy. Suddenly, you're no longer grounded in who you are. You're caught in the storm they created. And trust me, some people thrive on that. They poke, prod, provoke just to see if you'll flinch. Because if you do, they've got you. They've pulled you into their drama, and now your peace is in their hands. But if you don't react, if you stay calm, still, quiet, you become something most people aren't prepared for. Unreachable. And that right there is terrifying to the ego. You see, the ego, yours and theirs, can't survive in silence. It needs drama. It needs a battle. It needs to feel important through conflict. But when you don't give it what it wants, when you stay still while the storm rages around you, something incredible happens. You hold a mirror up to them. Your silence reflects everything they're trying to hide. Their insecurity, their manipulation, their chaos. They expected noise. You gave them presence. They wanted war. You gave them stillness. They tried to provoke weakness. You revealed strength. Carl Jung once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." Now flip that. Sometimes your calmness irritates others. Why? Because it forces them to look inward. They can't use your reaction as a distraction from their own shadow. And let's be honest, silence scares people. Not because it's empty, but because it's full of truth. A truth they can't control. A truth they can't manipulate. That's why toxic people hate calm people, because calm people are a mystery. They're unpredictable. They've unplugged from the emotional games. And this isn't about being cold. This isn't about shutting down or becoming numb. It's about choosing your peace over your pride. So the next time someone insults you, spreads rumors, ghosts you without explanation, lies to your face and dares you to react, Don't give them your energy, because your energy is currency and not everyone deserves access to it. Let their chaos die in the silence. Let their ego drown in your stillness. Let the drama collapse without your participation, because what they want is a reaction. What they fear is your evolution. No response isn't indifference. It's mastery. It's the loudest roar disguised as silence. It's the refusal to become who they need you to be in order to stay in control. And the best part, when you stop reacting, you stop being manipulated not just by people, but by your own ego. You no longer chase explanations. You no longer beg for clarity. You no longer perform for closure. You simply stand in your truth, knowing that silence doesn't mean defeat. It means you've outgrown the need to fight. So breathe, pause, let it go. You don't need to win the argument. You don't need to prove your worth. You don't need to be understood by people committed to misunderstanding you. You just need to remember your peace is not up for negotiation. So next time the chaos comes knocking, don't open the door. Let it knock, let it scream, let it echo, and you remain still. You remain free. You remain you. Let's take a breath together, not just a shallow one, but a deep, intentional inhale. And as you exhale, let's pause and reflect on something you may have never truly considered before. You are not your body. You are not your mind. Now, I know that sounds strange at first. After all, it's your body that feels the stress. It's your mind that spins with thoughts, worries, fears, and memories. So how could you be anything but those things? But here's the truth no one ever taught us in school. You are not the storm. You are the sky that holds the storm. You are the still presence behind the movement, the watcher behind the thoughts, the space in which everything happens, and yet nothing sticks. Let me explain. Think about a time when your heart was racing, maybe from anxiety, heartbreak, or fear, or when your mind was spinning in loops trying to fix something or make sense of pain. In those moments, you felt consumed, right? But even then, there was a small part of you watching it all happen. The part that said, I'm overwhelmed. The part that noticed, I'm hurting. That noticing part, that's you. Carl Jung, one of the most influential thinkers in psychology, spent his life pointing to this truth. He believed that beyond the layers of ego, emotion, and thought, there's something deeper, something whole, something untouched. That deeper thing is what you really are. Let's make it simple, your thoughts. They rise and fall like waves. Your emotions. They come and go like weather patterns. Your body. It changes every year, aging, aching, adapting. But you, the one who witnesses it all, remains constant. Have you ever sat in stillness and simply watched your thoughts without judgment? It's like watching clouds pass across the sky. Some are dark, some are light, some move fast, others linger, but none of them are you. You are the sky that holds them all. And this realization, it's not just poetic, it's transformational. Because the moment you stop identifying with every thought, every emotion, every physical reaction, you stop being dragged through life like a puppet on a string. You begin to live from your center, not from chaos. You become rooted. Let's say you're feeling anxious. Your chest tightens, your thoughts race, your palms sweat. Instead of saying, I am anxious, try this, I am experiencing anxiety. See the difference. You're not denying the emotion, you're simply no longer fusing with it. You're stepping back and witnessing, not drowning. And this subtle shift changes everything, because when you remember that you are the observer, not the storm, you don't take things so personally. You don't react impulsively. You don't define yourself by passing pain. You can still feel deeply, but now you're grounded in awareness. And in that awareness, you begin to taste real freedom, because you realize you are not the childhood wound. You are not the trauma. You are not the thought loop keeping you up at night. You are not the narrative someone else gave you. You are the space behind all of it. And space cannot be broken. Just like the sky holds every storm and still remains, you too can hold your experiences without being destroyed by them. And yes, there will be days when the storm feels loud, when the waves crash harder, but even then the sky is there. Even then, you are still here. So the next time your thoughts spiral, pause. The next time your emotions rage, breathe. The next time your body panics, observe. Don't resist, don't fight, just notice. Because that noticing, that's your true self. That's your power, that's your peace. So ask yourself this, what would shift in your life if you stopped believing every thought? What would happen if just for one day you chose to watch instead of react? Try it, Be the sky. Let the storms come and go. Let the stories rise and fall. But stay rooted in the truth. You are not the noise. You are the awareness behind it. And in that awareness, you are free. Picture this. You're sitting in a dark movie theater. The screen lights up. The music swells and the story begins. The main character is rising. Everything feels hopeful. And then out of nowhere, betrayal, heartbreak, loss. And as you watch, you feel it, tightness in your chest, a lump in your throat. It's as if you are living it. But then the lights come on. You blink and you remember. It was just a movie, a story, a projection. Now here's the part most people miss. Life works the same way, except this time you've forgotten you're in the theater. You've become so entangled in the scenes, the betrayals, the disappointments, the characters who hurt you that you think that's all you are. But you're not. You're not the heartbreak. You're not the failure. You're not the ending that didn't go as planned. You are the screen, the canvas on which life plays its scenes, but remains untouched by any of them. Carl Jung said, "What you do not make conscious will appear in your life as fate." And what does that mean? It means the scenes you keep reliving, the toxic relationships, the emotional patterns, the familiar pain, they're not just random. They're reflections of your inner world. They are your unhealed shadows projected outward, asking for your attention in the only way they know how. Through people, through events, through repetition. Think about it. Why do you keep attracting the same kind of heartbreak? Why do you keep getting caught in similar conflicts? Why does life feel like it's playing the same storyline over and over? It's not because you're cursed. It's because your unconscious wounds are calling the shots. Until you bring them into awareness, they'll keep scripting your movie. And here's the danger. If you forget you're the screen, you'll get lost in the scene. You'll become the character, the victim, the failure, the unloved, the misunderstood. And in that moment, you stop observing and start identifying. You become the pain instead of the person experiencing it. You become the plot twist instead of the awareness watching it unfold. But when you wake up, when you remember who you truly are, you step out of the role and back into the seat. You realize this story is happening on the screen, but I'm the one watching. And from that place, something beautiful happens. You can feel the emotions without becoming them. You can witness the pain without clinging to it. You can honor the story without losing yourself in it. You begin to live with clarity. Imagine watching a scene from your life like a movie, the argument, the breakup, the failure, and instead of judging it, you just watch. You ask, what is this trying to show me? What part of me is being mirrored here? What have I been projecting onto this scene? Because the truth is, the person who hurt you, they're a mirror. The situation that broke you, a mirror. Every recurring pattern, a mirror. Not to shame you, but to wake you up. To remind you of what you haven't yet healed, what you haven't yet seen, and what you're finally ready to release. So here's the shift. Instead of playing the same scene on repeat, you pause, you breathe. You reclaim your role, not as the character, but as the observer. And that right there is what awakening is. It's not escaping the world. It's seeing it for what it really is, a projection of your internal landscape. When you remember you're the screen, not the scene, you can let the story unfold, but no longer be defined by it. The pain might still come. The betrayal might still sting, but you remain still, grounded, whole, because you've remembered the truth. You are not the story. You are the awareness watching the story. And awareness cannot be broken. No. So the next time life feels overwhelming, pause and ask yourself, am I the scene or am I the screen? Because the moment you stop getting lost in the plot, you begin to reclaim the power that was always yours. Let's be honest for a second. There's a voice inside your head that absolutely hates silence. It wants the last word. It wants to be right. It wants to win the argument, fix the misunderstanding, prove the point. It whispers, say something. Don't let them get away with it. Defend yourself. That voice, that's the ego. And the ego is terrified. See, the ego isn't evil. It's just afraid. Afraid of being wrong, afraid of being misunderstood, afraid of being invisible or irrelevant. So it does what it knows best. It reacts. It lashes out. It clings to control. It builds walls. It crafts entire stories around why you must respond, why you have to prove yourself. But here's where the power shift happens. You don't have to obey it. You don't have to defend your name every time someone misjudges you. You don't have to fix every broken piece just because it makes your ego uncomfortable. You don't have to respond to noise just because it's loud. You can simply sit, breathe, and not react. And that's not weakness. That's inner domination. That's what it means to be in control without needing to control. Carl Jung once said, "What you resist persists. What you accept transforms." So let the ego scream, let it shout. They disrespected you, let it rage. They forgot you. You need to make them see, and then do nothing. Not because you don't care, but because you finally do about your peace, your clarity, your energy. Let me ask you something. How many hours, days, years have we lost trying to correct the narrative, trying to make people see us in a certain light, trying to win arguments that ultimately changed nothing? The ego thinks it's survival. But the truth, it's just noise. The ego lives off attention. It feeds on your reaction. And the more you feed it, the louder it becomes. But when you stop feeding it, when you pause, observe, and choose silence, something sacred begins to awaken your true self. That part of you that doesn't need to be liked to feel worthy. That doesn't need validation to feel seen. That doesn't need to be loud to be powerful. It's already whole, already grounded, already enough. And yes, at first, choosing silence will feel like defeat. Your ego will panic. It will call it giving up. It will scream, "You're being walked all over," but what it won't tell you is that your stillness is a threat to everything it's built. Because silence strips the ego of its favorite weapon, reaction. When you don't respond, you create space. And in that space, clarity enters, healing begins, and authenticity rises. Here's a personal truth I've learned the hard way. Not everything deserves your energy. Not every battle is worth fighting, and not every voice deserves your attention. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is say nothing. Not because you're weak, but because you've outgrown the need to prove anything at all. So next time someone tests you with judgment, betrayal, misunderstanding, or manipulation, don't rush to fix, to explain, to engage. Pause, breathe, watch what rises inside you. Let the ego throw its tantrum in the background. Let it panic, let it cry out for attention. And don't fight it, just don't feed it. Because the more you watch it without reacting, the more it dissolves into quiet. And from that quiet, your essence begins to emerge. That's what Carl Jung called the self, the full, authentic, unified version of who you are beneath all the noise. It's not interested in clapping back. It's not obsessed with justice or winning or being seen. It just is. And that's the paradox of power. True power doesn't scream. It doesn't defend. It doesn't need applause or approval. True power sits in silence and lets the rest fall away. So let your ego scream. Let it throw its fit. Let it demand chaos. And while it does, you stay still, not because you're passive, but because you're finally free. Let's start with something that might surprise you. Awareness isn't soft. It's not passive. It's not doing nothing. In fact, awareness, real grounded conscious awareness, is one of the most powerful forces in the universe. Because when you're truly aware, you stop living life on autopilot. You stop reacting from pain, from fear, from the stories you never chose, but have been carrying for years. You begin to move differently, speak differently, live differently. Let me explain. Most people are not actually living, they're reacting. They're reacting to their past, to wounds they've never looked at, to unconscious programming they didn't create but were conditioned into, and they don't even realize it. Carl Jung put it perfectly: until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. That means every time you lash out and regret it later, every time you fall into the same emotional patterns, every time you sabotage yourself and don't know why, it's not because you're broken, it's because you're unaware. But the moment you bring awareness to those patterns, everything begins to change. And I'm not saying this from theory, I'm saying this from lived experience. Let me show you why awareness is not just powerful. It's transformational. There are 3 miracles that happen when awareness becomes your default state. 1. Awareness transforms your reality. What once felt overwhelming now becomes manageable, because instead of drowning in emotions, you observe them. Instead of reacting from pain, you respond from presence. Let's say someone criticizes you. Your old pattern might be to get defensive, shut down, or spiral. But with awareness, you pause. You ask, what part of me feels threatened, and why. You realize it's not about them. It's about an old wound that's never been fully seen. And now, you get to heal it instead of relive it. That's how your reality starts to shift. Not because the world changes, but because you do. 2. Awareness heals the body. You've probably heard this before: your thoughts affect your biology. But here's the science behind it. When you're constantly in fight or flight mode, triggered, reactive, anxious, your nervous system is flooded with stress hormones like cortisol. Your heart rate rises, your immune system weakens, your body prepares for a threat that might not even exist. But when you sit in awareness, when you pause and breathe instead of react, your body relaxes, your heart rate slows, your muscles unclench, your cells begin to regenerate instead of defend. You don't just feel calmer, you become healthier. That's not magic. That's biology responding to mindfulness. 3. Awareness calms the inner storm. Have you ever felt like your mind is a battlefield? Like you're constantly fighting yourself? Awareness is what brings the war to a standstill. Because when you're aware, you no longer believe every thought. You no longer attach to every emotion. You become the space in which the storm exists, but no longer controls you. Suddenly, the things that used to shake you no longer move you, not because you've become numb, but because you've become grounded. And this is where something even deeper happens. Carl Jung called it individuation, the process of becoming whole, not perfect whole. It's when you integrate your shadow and your light, when you stop rejecting parts of yourself and start understanding them, when you realize you're not here to destroy your ego, you're here to transcend it with compassion and truth, because the light isn't afraid of the dark. It knows both are part of the same journey. And when you bring awareness to all parts of you, not just the pretty polished parts, you begin to return to yourself. The real you. The one that's always been there beneath the noise. The one that doesn't react to chaos, but observes it with clarity. So if you're wondering how to start small. Start by noticing your breath when you feel anxious. Start by watching your thoughts without believing every one of them. Start by asking, what am I feeling, and where is this really coming from? You don't have to solve it all today. You just have to see it. Because the moment you see it without judgment, you've already begun to heal. Awareness doesn't mean you never feel pain. It means pain no longer runs your life, and that, my friend, is true power. Let me ask you a question that might hit closer to home than you expect. When did you start believing you needed to be fixed? Was it the day someone told you you were too sensitive, too quiet, too much, not enough? Or maybe it wasn't what they said, but what you saw. The constant stream of self-improvement, 10 ways to upgrade your mindset. Fix your life in 30 days, as if your very existence was a project under construction. But here's a truth I wish more people heard sooner. You're not broken. You're not defective. You were never meant to be fixed. You were just programmed. From the moment you came into this world, the programming began. Subtle messages about what's acceptable, lovable, worthy, what you should suppress, what you must perform, what parts of yourself needed to be toned down to be accepted. And so, piece by piece, the real you got buried, not lost, but layered beneath conditioning, culture, comparison. Then the ego stepped in and said, "Don't worry, I'll take over, I'll help you survive." And suddenly, every emotion that didn't feel safe got filed under problem. Your sadness, a flaw. Your fear, a weakness. Your confusion, proof that something was wrong with you. So what did you do? You gotta work fixing it, fixing yourself. But here's the trap. The more you try to fix what isn't broken, the more broken you feel. It's like standing in front of a flower and saying, "You should bloom faster, you should be taller, you should be more like the flower next to you." Eventually the flower withers, not because it's defective, but because it's being forced out of its own natural rhythm. You don't need more fixing, you need more presence. Real healing doesn't begin when you figure out the right technique. It begins when you stop trying to change the feeling and start sitting with the feeling. No labels, no judgment, no rush to reframe or rewire. Just space, just breath, just being. Carl Jung once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." And it's true, because full acceptance means facing the parts of you the ego wants to hide. The sadness you buried, the anger you weren't allowed to express, the grief you never gave yourself permission to feel. But that's where the healing lives. Not in resistance, not in analysis, but in allowance. In the quiet courage to say, "I don't need to solve this. I just need to feel this." Because your emotions don't need fixing, they need witnessing. They're not glitches in the system, they're signals, messages, sacred data points from your soul. So when anxiety shows up, don't ask, "How do I make it go away?" Ask, "What is this part of me trying to say?" When sadness knocks, don't push it aside. Invite it in. Sit with it like you would a friend who doesn't need advice. Just presence. That's what true healing looks like. Not perfection, not performance, but permission. Permission to feel without fixing, to fall apart without needing to rebuild instantly, to be in the in-between without rushing toward resolution. Because healing isn't a checklist. It's not something you achieve. It's something you allow. And that permission, that presence, that quiet inner space, where everything is welcome, that's where you meet the real you, not the ego version, not the image you curate, but the deeper self that was never broken, just buried. So today I want to offer you this. You don't need another self-help strategy. You don't need to become a better version of you. You just need to remember, the real you is not hiding in the next goal, the next fix, or the next breakthrough. The real you is already here. Underneath the noise, beneath the story, waiting to be seen. So let go of fixing and start listening. Because in that space of radical self-acceptance, you'll find something no solution could ever give you. Let's talk about something most of us never even question. Why we react the way we do. Not just in the big moments, but in the everyday ones. Someone criticizes you, you snap back. Someone ghosts you, you spiral into overthinking. You feel unseen, unheard, misunderstood, and your chest tightens, your throat closes, your mind races. But here's the thing, that reaction didn't start with the moment, it started long before that. From the time we were children, we were taught something without even knowing it. We were taught to react, not to pause, not to reflect, not to observe, just react. Think back. Someone took your toy. You were told, "Don't let them say something, take it back." You cried, "Stop that, be strong, you got hurt, you're fine, shake it off." We weren't taught to sit with emotions. We were trained to override them, to protect, to perform, to control. So we built defenses. not just mentally but neurologically. Our nervous system learned pain, react, discomfort, fix, silence, God, fear. And here's where it gets deeper. Each one of those reactions isn't just a habit, it's a survival mechanism. It comes from a younger version of you, a part of you that never got the safety it needed to just feel. Every overreaction, every emotional outburst, every time you rush to explain, defend, or fight back, it's not your adult self. It's your inner child, still trying to protect you, still terrified of being hurt again, still unsure what to do with pain that has no outlet. So let me ask you this. What if your reactivity isn't your fault, but it is your responsibility? What if breaking free doesn't start with more effort, but with more awareness? Because here's the truth. Reacting is programming. Pausing is evolution. When you react, you are reliving the past. When you pause, you're rewriting the future. It's easy to confuse reactivity with strength. We live in a world that praises fast comebacks, sharp words, and instant opinions. We're told, speak up, clap back, don't stay silent. But here's what they don't tell you. Silence isn't weakness. It's transformation. It's the space between the trigger and the old story. It's the gap where healing begins. It's the breath where you finally get to choose. Do I want to relive this again, or do I want to respond from a new place? Let me give you a real example. You're having a tough day. Someone says something rude out of nowhere. Your first instinct, snap, defend, prove your worth. But instead, you pause. You feel the heat rising in your chest. You breathe. And you ask yourself, what part of me is feeling unsafe right now? What story am I about to repeat? That pause, that micro moment, that's the shift. Because when you choose silence, not from fear, but from power, you break the loop. You tell your nervous system, we don't have to live in survival mode anymore. And this isn't about being passive. This is about being conscious. Silence doesn't mean you ignore things. It means you respond when you're ready. From clarity, from wholeness, from wisdom. Carl Jung called this process individuation, becoming whole, by integrating all parts of yourself. The reactive parts, the protective parts, the quiet, wounded, still healing parts. And in that integration, something sacred happens. You stop letting pain drive your decisions. You stop letting triggers define your truth. You stop letting old wounds write new chapters, because now you know you were programmed to react, but you don't have to keep playing that script. You can choose presence, you can choose pause, you can choose a new path. So the next time the tension rises, when your ego says, say something, when your fear says, fight back, just breathe, let the feeling rise, let the old instinct scream, and then do nothing. Because in that nothing, you reclaim everything. Let me start with a question that might feel a little uncomfortable. How much of your energy is being spent on things that don't actually deserve it? That relationship that drains you, the opinion of someone who never really saw you, the habit of explaining yourself to people who've already decided not to understand. If you're like most of us, the answer is a lot. And we get it backwards. We think that caring means carrying, that love means losing ourselves, that to be a good person we have to be constantly available emotionally, mentally, energetically. But let me offer a different lens. Detachment isn't coldness, it's clarity. It's not about shutting down your heart. It's about guarding it with wisdom, because the truth is not everything and everyone is worthy of your energy. Think of your energy like currency. Would you hand out your life savings to every stranger who asked for it? Of course not. So why do we do that with our emotional energy? We invest in people who don't invest back. We explain ourselves to people who only listen to respond. We overextend in conversations that leave us depleted, hoping to be seen chosen or understood. And the cost is your peace, your clarity, your center. But here's the shift. You don't have to respond to everything. You don't have to fix every dynamic. You don't have to be available to every emotional invitation, because sometimes the most loving thing you can do is step back, not out of resentment, not out of arrogance, but because you finally recognize that your energy is sacred and not everyone gets a key. Now I know what you might be thinking, but if I let go, does that make me heartless, cold, selfish? No, it makes you conscious. Because detachment doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you stop bleeding for everything you feel. It doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop carrying what was never yours to hold. It's the moment you stop abandoning yourself in the name of love. Let me give you a real-world example. Imagine you're holding a rope. On the other end is someone pulling harder and harder, arguing, projecting, manipulating. You keep holding on thinking if you just say the right thing, do the right thing, they'll soften. But all that's happening is your hands are burning, your skin is tearing, your soul is exhausted. Now imagine you let go of the rope, not because you don't care, but because you finally do about yourself. That moment, that's not weakness. That's sovereignty, because silence, detachment, and boundaries are not about disconnection. They're about direction. They're about knowing who you are and what you're no longer available for. Carl Jung once said, "He who looks outside dreams. He who looks inside awakens." Detachment is the beginning of that awakening. It's the moment you stop living to be chosen and start choosing yourself. It's the moment you stop over-explaining your truth and start honoring it in silence. Because here's what no one tells you. When you rise into your power, not everyone will clap. Some will say you've changed, that you've become distant, that you don't care like you used to. Let them talk. They don't understand the storm you had to walk through just to now sit in this kind of stillness. They don't see the version of you that used to overgive, over-apologize, over-function. They don't know how hard you had to fight to stop fighting. So yes, detach, not out of bitterness, but out of balance. Not because you stopped feeling, but because you finally started feeling wisely. Let go of what's heavy. Step back from what's hollow. Create space from what no longer honors the person you're becoming. Because you don't rise by holding on. You rise by letting go with love, with clarity, with deep trust that what's meant for you doesn't require you to suffer to keep it. And maybe, just maybe, the next level of your life isn't about adding more, it's about releasing more. So the next time your silence is mistaken for distance, let it be. The next time someone doesn't understand your boundaries, let them misunderstand. Because your peace isn't up for debate. Your energy is not public property, and your evolution doesn't need their permission. Detach, so you can rise. Let me ask you something that might sound strange at first. What if the goal isn't to be stronger, but to become untouchable? Not in a cold, disconnected way, but in a calm, liberated way, where no insult, no chaos, no storm can shake what you've become. This is what it means to become the void. Now, I know the word void might sound like emptiness, like disappearing or feeling nothing, but that's not what I'm talking about. The void I'm talking about is not nothingness. It's limitlessness. It's the inner stillness that can't be triggered. It's the sacred space inside you where nothing needs to be defended, where nothing clings, nothing controls, nothing fears. To become the void is not to erase who you are. It's to become so whole, so complete within yourself that nothing outside of you has the power to disturb your peace. Imagine this. Someone tries to insult you. They try to provoke blame, guilt trip project. But instead of reacting, you just breathe, you observe, and you feel absolutely no pull to explain, prove, or retaliate. Because deep down, you've reached a place where there's nothing left to defend. No ego trying to be right. No identity needing validation. No pain waiting to be triggered. That's the void. It's not absence, it's presence beyond identity. It's what spiritual teachers, mystics, and thinkers like Carl Jung called individuation, the sacred process of becoming whole, integrating every shadow, dissolving the masks, letting go of the roles you were taught to play. You're no longer the victim, you're no longer the hero, you're not even the enlightened one. You are just space. A space that holds all things without becoming them. Because the truth is, we suffer not because of what happens to us, but because of how we identify with it. You don't get hurt because someone disrespected you. You get hurt because some part of you still needs to be respected. You don't spiral because someone left you. You spiral because some part of you still believes you needed them to feel whole. When you become the void, these hooks vanish because you stop attaching your peace to people, events, or outcomes. Think of it like this: in the past, when someone said something triggering, you might have thought, how dare they? What did I do wrong? Why don't they see my worth? But from the void, you realize their words are just projections. Their energy doesn't belong to you, and your worth was never up for negotiation. There's nothing left to chase, nothing left to prove, nothing left to fix. It's not apathy, it's not numbness, it's liberation. It's the moment you stop asking the world to reflect your value because you now see it so clearly from within. And here's the beauty: when you stop reacting, you stop being wounded. The cycle ends. The emotional traps lose their grip. The manipulative dynamics fall flat. The energy vampires move on because there's nothing left to drain. You've become a mirror that reflects but doesn't absorb. You hold space for others, but their storms no longer cloud your sky. So how do you get there? Not by trying harder, not by suppressing emotion, but by recognizing this simple truth: you are not the story. You are the space where the story unfolds. You are not the anger, you're the awareness of it. Not the sadness, you're the stillness that holds it. Not the praise, the blame, the success, or the failure. You are what remains when all of that fades. That's the void. And when you live from this space, life changes. Conflict no longer hooks you. Noise no longer rattles you. And the ego, the one that used to scream for control, sits in quiet surrender. Because you've returned to something deeper, something untouchable, something infinite. So if you're tired of being triggered, drained, or entangled, don't build more armor. Dissolve the need to wear it. Let go of the roles. Release the identity. Step back from the performance and enter the silence that can't be manipulated. That's where your power lives. That's where true healing begins. That's where nothing, absolutely nothing, can touch you. Become the void and let the world fall away. So, what happens after the healing, after the silence, after the storms inside you have quieted? You don't become someone new. You simply return to someone you've always been. But this time, without the noise. You're no longer fighting yourself. The war, the one you didn't even realize you'd been carrying for years, has come to an end. No more arguments with your own emotions. No more needing to prove you're worthy. No more chasing love that only mirrors your wounds, that need to be understood, to be accepted, to be seen. It softens, not because you gave up, but because you finally remembered where home is. And it's not out there, not in someone else's validation, not in the next goal, the next relationship, the next aha moment. It's here, now, inside. In the stillness between your thoughts, in the breath between your reactions, in the quiet knowing that you were never broken, just buried under noise. You've probably spent years searching, trying to fix something, trying to heal fast enough to become lovable, trying to become someone who finally feels enough. But this is different. This isn't about becoming anything. It's about unbecoming everything you thought you had to be, just to be safe, just to be seen. Because all along, you were never the pain. You were the space it moved through. You were never the fear. You were the awareness behind it. And now you know that. You've walked through the fire, you've met the shadows, you've stood in silence with your demons and didn't flinch. And what's left? Not applause, not fireworks, not a medal, just stillness, a soft exhale, a knowing smile. This is what it means to come home. It doesn't shout, it doesn't demand attention, it just is. That's the thing no one tells you about healing. It doesn't end with a grand finale. It ends with a return to the self that doesn't need fixing, to the soul that was never lost, to the presence that was always waiting patiently, quietly, faithfully. You no longer need to be loved to feel lovable. You no longer need to be heard to feel valid. You no longer need to be understood to feel complete, because finally you understand. And that understanding doesn't come from thought, it comes from silence, from the quiet moment where you sit with yourself and realize, this is enough. I am enough, right here, right now, as I am. So if no one has told you this today, let me be the one who does. You've made it, not to the end, but to the beginning, the place you always belonged, the home that was never out there. It was always you, waiting, listening, calling you back with every breath. Welcome home.